Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion on this Monday the 3rd of February 2025. We are live on the Wilms Front YouTube channel, the Wilms Front Rumble channel and the Wilms Front X account. Hello to everyone in the chats, though I cannot put up your comments tonight because there's some error in the chat feed, which is unfortunate. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where we are in the middle of a massive heat wave in the high 30 degrees Celsius, coupled with a tropical thunder and lightning show last night. Very muggy and overcast, humid weather. You can probably hear the fan going in my studio, and I'll try not to perspire. I've got my drink to keep my fluids up. Now, none of the weekend's diversity events were cancelled because of the extreme heat, unlike last year's Labor Day Moomba parade, which I think it was the city of Melbourne decided to cancel because of the extreme heat. But Melbourne's LGBTQIA plus Midsummer Pride Parade went ahead last year. That certainly wasn't cancelled because of the heat. This was, of course, the ABC's flattering coverage. So it said that the event was brought forward half an hour due to the heat. And Premier Jacinta Allen was there. And so she said, "I say to any right-wing leader who wants to take their cues or take their notes from the MAGA movement in the USA that they have to come through me, come through the Victorian government and come through the Victorian community first, who are very resoundingly stand in support of our LGBTQA plus community and go even further than that, will fight for our LGBTQA community." And she even decided to upload to her social medias this video where she was speaking to the media, saying as much.
Even though it's 2025, we are seeing efforts not just to wind back the gains of equality that have been made over the past 30 years, but worse, to continue to marginalise, continue to inflict hate and hurt on our LGBTIQA plus community. And I say to any right-wing leader who wants to take their cues or take their notes from the MAGA movement in the USA, that they have to come through me, come through the Victorian government and come through the Victorian community first, who very resoundingly stand in support of our LGBTIQA plus community, and go even further for that, will fight for our LGBTIQA plus community. Here in Victoria, equality is not negotiable.
The parade, I feel, with events that are going involved internationally and unfortunately domestically, that we need this march more than we have ever needed this.
Now, the Allen Labor government, as it was under Dan Andrews, when they say the LGBTQA plus community is standing strong in the face of international intolerance and stigma, they're deliberately muddying the waters here. So the Trump administration, which clearly Jacinta Allen is saying is the face of international intolerance and stigma, she is trying to say that the LGB is the same as the LGBTQI plus, or this is what the Biden administration calls it. And of course, the T stands for transgender. The Q stands for queer, which queer identity, ideology, it's basically just straight people wanting to feel special, cultural Marxists, and also the groomers. So many lesbian, gay, bisexuals have wanted a divorce from the TQIA plus. Donald Trump has granted it, and as you can see, is changes in the travel advisory page on the US state government website. And so this is of course one of the left's trick. They say that all of because they certainly will not grant a separation. So what Jacinta Allen is actually talking about is that her government is going to continue the trans agenda status quo, which of course means gender self-ID, the conversion therapy ban, which means that you're not even allowed to, question the identity, gender dysphoria, gender identity disorder of a young person or an adult for that matter. And of course, Victoria, through the Royal Children's Hospital, is the epicenter of the youth gender transitions through, of course, puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. Andrew Nolan says, I thought the Q was, well, in terms of, drama queens, certainly that would be the case. So the Labor government, they think that there is nothing needs to be reviewed. In fact, Jacinta Allen is wanting to push through expanded anti-vilification laws, which would carry a maximum prison term of 5 years for incitement on the grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, the new Queensland LNP government, they have taken a different approach. The outgoing Stephen Miles, a Labor government, they conducted a stacked review into Queensland gender services, which said, we've got to expand the gender services because we've got to keep up with demand. Well, the new Crisafulli government didn't accept that, and last week the new health minister in Queensland, Tim Nichols, ordered a 1-year pause of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones being issued to new pediatric patients. So this is not retrospective. So those children who have already been issued with puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones will still be allowed to continue to receive that. But the trigger for this was the Cairns Sexual Health Service has apparently delivered unauthorised paediatric gender services without an agreed model of care to 42 children, 17 who are prescribed stage 1 or stage 2 hormone therapy in a way that may align with treatment guidelines. Remember, this is their own treatment guidelines, the gender activists. Of course, in Australia, all of the peak medical bodies have been captured by trans ideology, like the Australian Medical Association. We even had the Australian Human Rights Sex Discrimination Commissioner this week claimed that she was very alarmed about this. So I'll just bring that up now. So the Sex Discrimination Commissioner, who's is supposed to be looking out for sex-based rights. So her name is Dr. Anna Cody. So according to her, a fundamental human right is access to healthcare, and gender-affirming healthcare is part of this right. Trans and gender diverse children and young people should feel supported to affirm their gender by adults in their lives and healthcare providers, and calls the pause potential to harm physical and mental well-being of children. We note that these treatments are supported by the evidence of the Australian Standards of Care and Treatment Guidelines for Trans and Gender Diverse Children and Adolescents that are endorsed by medical experts. Above all, we must ensure putting the well-being of trans and gender diverse children and young people first. So I'm sure most of you are aware that the term gender affirming care is extremely loaded, that if a child says they're the opposite gender, we need to automatically affirm it. And that's the law in Queensland as well as Victoria, New South Wales. I think most states and territories now have both gay and trans conversion therapy bans. And now on a Friday afternoon, the Federal Health Minister, Mark Butler, he announced that there would be a federal comprehensive review into the Human Rights Commission called it, the Australian Standards of Care and Treatment Guidelines for Trans and Gender Diverse Children and Adolescents. So this will be conducted by the National Health and Medical Research Council, NHMRAC, to develop new national guidelines, and there'll be a interim report in the middle of 2026. Now, there was a lot of backslapping by a lot of the anti-child mutilation activists who said, "Oh, we've won," and Billboard Chris basically said, "Oh, this is a win," because they once they look at the facts, they'll advise a permanent ban, which was extremely naive and simplistic to just assume that. And it was pretty clear by Friday evening when this was announced by Mark Butler's Assistant Minister Jed Carney, who's the member for Cooper in Melbourne, which used to be the seat of Batman, and erased our founder John Batman from the name of that seat.
Hello everybody. Well, today the Labor government made an announcement about the clinical care of trans and gender diverse children and adolescents. Now, we already have excellent clinical guidelines that have been developed by experts, but we've never had those guidelines nationally consistent. And recently, AusPath, an organisation made up of clinicians who care for gender diverse and trans children and adolescents, and Transcend, a very important organisation who care for the mental health of that community, wrote to the government and said these excellent clinical guidelines really do need to be updated. Now, we have agreed, and we think they do need to be updated, and so we have asked the National Health and Medical Research Council to undertake this updating of these guidelines. The NHMRC is the perfect body to do this, and of course they will consult very closely with the community, with organisations like OzPath and Transcend, people with lived experience and clinicians, to make sure that the care a very vulnerable part of our community gets is up to date and in line with the most recent scientific evidence. Now, this is actually in line with the LGBTIQA+ action plan, the Health Action Plan, which we announced a couple of weeks ago, or last year actually. This is one of the recommendations, a very important recommendation. We think that our trans and gender diverse children and adolescents deserve the best healthcare, just like you, just like me, just like everybody in Australia deserves the best healthcare. And this is not a national inquiry. This is an updating of the clinical care guidelines that the community has asked for, that is overdue, and that need to be nationally consistent. We expect all children to have continuity of care, to get the care when and where they need it. And updating the clinical guidelines, we hope, will go a long way to ensuring that.
So she mentioned, Jed Carney, OzPath, which is, you all remember, the WPath files, the world organisation for setting gender transition guidelines. So OzPath is its Australian counterpart, and GenSpect is another pro-trans group. So basically, Jed Carney is saying we're looking at improving on the great work that we're already doing. But according to the radical trans activists, any sort of review is capitulating to the MAGA anti-trans, because everything is perfect the way it is. Now, as I mentioned, so this all report it's only an interim finding. Interim findings will be released mid-2026, so 18 months, and there's not going to be a federal pause on puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones for under 18s. Now, she mentioned, Jed Carney, speaking to those with lived experiences. What about detransitioners? There was a feature on detransitioners in the Daily Telegraph on Sunday. So featured was Mel Jeffries, who transitioned in her late teens and had a double mastectomy at age 25, and has spent the last 3 years detransitioning. She was featured in the 7 News Spotlight episode on detransitioners and spoke at the Free Speech rally in Flagstaff Gardens last year. I'm hoping to interview her on Wilms front very soon. Also featured was Courtney Colson. So she's been featured on both Spotlight and Patricia Carvelis's Four Corner story on transgender children. And he also mentioned in here is a letter that was drafted by Women's Forum Australia CEO, Rachel Wong, from 100 prominent Australians, including the detransitioners mentioned in that article, calling on Anthony Albanese to hold a federal inquiry. Now, you heard Jed Carney say that this is not a federal inquiry. It is a review which has been outsourced to a health bureaucratic agency. So there was a Senate motion that failed last year which was brought by Pauline Hanson, and was voted down in the Senate. All the Labor MPs voted against it. And there were several coalition senators who decided to vote it down as well, including Jane Hume, one of the most senior women in the Dutton Shadow Ministry. Of course, recently struggled on Sunrise to give a straight answer to how many genders are there. She eventually said that there were 2. So this is the letter here. And so I mentions down here that the need for a public inquiry. This is a potential public health disaster of generational significance, demanding an independent public inquiry. Until inquiries complete, all gender affirmation interventions for children, young people, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones and surgeries must be paused to prevent further harm. So it was signed by former Prime Minister Tony Abbott and former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson. Also, other prominent politicians signing it were, of course, Moira Deeming, Matt Canavan, Claire Chandler, Bev MacArthur in the Victorian Parliament, Tanya Davies in the New South Wales Parliament. So this has been basically ignored by the Albanese government. Peter Dutton so far has not wanted to lean into this. He's got a Joe Rogan style podcast interview with Peter Credlin, which is going to be airing on Thursday, where he will be asked about this. We shall hear his answer. Now, update on one of our main stories from last week, where you will remember that 16 members of the National Socialist Network were being detained in the Adelaide jail cells over the Australia Day long weekend after they were arrested for and charged with loitering and carrying articles of disguise, which I said last week, they weren't wearing masks last week, but I said I assumed it's because they were carrying masks. This was incorrect. They were the articles of disguise were actually hat and sunglasses, like Joel Davis is wearing here. Now, Joel Davis was not arrested on the day. There was actually 70 plus National Socialist Network members who were in Adelaide. They were holding a national conference, but the South Australian Police on Australia Day nabbed 16 of them. And now when they were set to appear before a magistrate on Tuesday afternoon, the South Australian Police decided that they would arrest Joel Davis in front of the news media cameras for a combination of swearing and showing Nazi insignia.
What symbol? What symbol?
So you guys being spoken to?
Yep.
Alright guys, there's been offences committed.
Yeah, so an absolute joke. Now I see that Nathan Swindon has joined the chat. He was also arrested and detained by South Australian police for 2 days. He said that I just clicked on the stream right as you started talking about the NSN. Now, all of the National Socialist Network members who were detained have now been bailed, and they were forced to basically the magistrate said, if you don't sign these bail conditions, you will be here until March, so 2 months. So they're sort of the standard bail conditions, such as must not possess a firearm, and then there must not enter within the Adelaide area. I must not undertake public displays wearing articles of disguise that conceal my identity, that is in support of Nazi, neo-Nazi, nationalist or racist ideology. So basically can't engage in street activism, and must not contact, attempt to contact or associate in any way, either directly or indirectly, with members of the National Socialist Network or European Australian movement, including the persons below. And obviously that is blacked out on that paper there. Now, because Blair Cottrell is not a member of the National Socialist Network or the European Australian movement, Joel Davis was still able to do the Thursday night stream with Blair. And there was also a special White Australia First stream with Michael Nelson Mickle, who was there in Adelaide but wasn't arrested and charged, and Jimoan Roberts, Jimbo, who was in Melbourne on Australia Day attending the National Workers Alliance Australia Day rally outside of Melbourne Park, and also joining them was White Australian Zuma. Now, I'm a regular listener to a AFL legend, or well, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to call him a AFL legend, since basically the AFL has the trademark of that, but AFL icon Sam Newman, his You Cannot Be Serious podcast. I listen to it every Wednesday. So Richard Wollstonecroft, who Sam calls Dick from Muff, he was on last week with Ivan, who I don't know what Ivan's real name is, but the reason Sam calls him Ivan is because he looks like Ivan Milat, the infamous backpacker serial killer. And of course, Sam Newman's real name is not Sam, it is John. So as Sam Newman discussed the arrest of the National Socialist Network members in Adelaide, and said that it was ridiculous. He said, of course, I don't agree with their philosophy, but they should be allowed to express their views, and also expressed an interest in interviewing Thomas Sewell. And that occurred today, and Blair Cottrell also was there. So it was originally going to air on Wednesday, but Blair and Tom posted to their social medias their photo with Sam outside of the Smartass Sam sign outside of the studio, and of course the usual Sam Newman outrage brigade were back, like they were when Sam Newman suggested that people boo the Welcome to Country. Tony Jones, of course, the 9 News sports presenter, said to Sam Newman, "You've crossed a line," What's the line? It's just the line that Tony Jones made up. Of course, most of us reckon that Tony Jones crossed the line when he said to Serbian supporters, Novak Djokovic, kick him out. And I saw some lefty today saying that Sam crossed a boundary. Of course, that's just a boundary that is made up. Now, when somebody says you've crossed the line, you've crossed a boundary, that's an attempt to keep the Overton window as it is. And so, of course, because there was immediate uproar, there'll probably be a renewed push to kick Sam Newman out of the AFL Hall of Fame. I know that Lydia Thorpe suggested that when Sam Newman was last criticised for suggesting booing the Welcome to Country. So he decided to put out a message on his Smarter Sam You Cannot Be Serious socials, saying that he would not be backing down.
I interviewed Thomas Sewell and Blair Cottrell, neo-Nazis, on You Cannot Be Serious podcast. I haven't posted it yet, but I was asked by a journalist because Blair Cottrell posted a picture of him and me and Thomas Sewell on X, and I'm associated now with being a Nazi. I replied to the journalist who said, is it appropriate to put this on and chat about who they are? And I said, I by no means condone what they're on, but I thought they're people of interest and I'm going to put it to air. If you think I'm a Nazi, so be it. Why don't you have a look at what they say and what I asked them, and you make your mind up.
Well, all of a sudden was I muted there? Sorry, I'll start again. Now, Sam Newman is clearly not a Nazi. Now, Sam Newman, he has said on his podcast he's willing to interview anybody of interest. Lydia Thorpe, though Lydia Thorpe refused, even though I thought that was a bit rich, because Lydia Thorpe made an allegation that Sam Newman tried to flirt with her in Barnsdale 30 years ago. He also extended an invitation to Clementine Ford as well, but she refused. The open invitations still stand. So Sam Newman, as he said, he is in that video message. He's interviewed Tom and Blair because they're people of interest, and that guilt by association shtick, it is so old now. Now, because there is all of this journalistic and activist outrage at Sam Newman platforming neo-Nazis, though Blair Cottrell, he denies being a neo-Nazi. Sam Newman has decided to publish the episode tonight. So I will put the link to it in the live chat. I'll be listening to it. It actually went live about 10 minutes before I got to air. So it goes for about 53 minutes. So it's already got close to 1,000 views. So Sam Newman does a video podcast now on the You Cannot Be Serious channel. So like I said, I'll be listening to it as soon as I'm off air, and I would advise you to listen to it as well. And also, the Herald Sun thought bimbo reporter who decided to write this hit piece this evening. So Brooke Griegbert Craig. So I've never heard of her, but she's one of the many Herald Sun thought bimbo reporters who writes about nationalists and always attend when they're before the courts for doing a Nazi salute or something else. It says that controversial AFL personality Sam Newman has interviewed neo-Nazis Thomas Sewell and Blair Cottrell on his podcast in a move slammed as an absolute moral collapse. Who said it was an absolute moral collapse? Let's go down further. It, of course, was fucking Devere Abramovich from the Anti-Defamation Commission. So this is the level of her journalism, just goes to Devere for some hyperbolic quotes. And of course, I'll do the voice. Sam Newman has now plunged into the depths of disgrace, rolling out the red carpet for these men. These two have been accused of being the faces of hatred, and Sam Newman just handed them legitimacy on a silver platter. By giving them a platform, Newman has spat in the face of the Holocaust survivors. He's only used that analogy about 10 times in previous articles. Trampled on the legacy of the courageous diggers who died to defeat Hitler, and insulted every Australian who has fought against bigotry. Mr. Abramovich says Newman's actions were dangerously and unforgivably wrong. There is right and then there is wrong. And what Sam Newman has done is dangerously, unforgivably wrong. He has given these men a megaphone. In doing so, he's disgraced himself, not only himself, but the very game that once made him a household name. Sam Newman, your legacy is now rewritten, not as a sporting great, but as a man who stood with the men charged with being vile extremists in Australia. I'm not sure that that's a specific criminal offence, being a vile extremist. That's, of course, subjective. And there's also a quote from Alon Kazuto, CEO of the Zionist Federation of Australia, said, I'm not sure what he sounds like, Blair Cottrell and Thomas Sewell have no place being platformed. So, yes, I don't think that Sam Newman, who runs his own podcast, he's 78 years old, is a multi-millionaire, gives a fuck about the backlash. I mean, I hope that his current co-host, Wayne Carey, doesn't decide to walk out on him, because he's got some lefty views, particularly on the Aboriginal grievance and Australia Day. His previous co-host, Don Scott, walked out because of the backlash over booing the Welcome to Country. And Sam Newman was actually formally fired from Channel 9 in 2020 for calling George Floyd a piece of shit, which he is. And I think as time went by, it's been proven correct. Now, there was another hit piece on the National Socialist Network in the 9 newspapers on Sunday. So this was by Paul Sakal in The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. Musk X enables Australia's neo-Nazis, warned coalition and online watchdog. So it quotes the e-safety commissioner who says that it was inevitable a platform would become toxic and less safe if the company cut staff in charge of social responsibility. You're creating a perfect storm if you let the worst offenders back on while at the same time significantly losing trust and safety personnel whose job it is to protect users from harm. There are clear concerns about the implication for the safety of users from hurty words. And it also quotes in this article the coalition's shadow Home Affairs spokesman, James Patterson, who's a hardcore Zionist. It mentions whose posts on X are sometimes swamped with far-right sentiment on immigration and anti-Semitic comments, said new laws against inciting violence towards minorities were needed now. Neo-Nazis are clearly emboldened in Australia right now. In real life and online, there has been a noticeable uptick in their activity, especially on X in recent months. They may drape themselves in the Australian flag and call themselves patriots, but there's nothing patriotic about worshipping a failed foreign regime led by one of history's greatest losers. The real patriots fought and died defeating Nazism. So basically, he said similar thing to what De Vere said, but without the hyperbole. And now James Patterson on his X account, he listed his action plan. I'm not sure if it is official coalition policy for us. So he said that anti-Semitic graffiti in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth over the weekend all be added to the PM's new database, but so far there's no evidence being added to an Excel spreadsheet will deter anti-Semites or criminals for hire. Only real action can do that. With federal this week, there are 8 steps the Albanese government can take if serious about stopping this domestic terror crisis. Reform inadequate incitement to violence provisions by progressing the bill first introduced by the Attorney General 5 months ago. That was secured by partisan agreement with minor amendments. Legislate mandatory minimum sentences for Commonwealth terrorism offences of at least 6 years. Legislate mandatory minimum of at least 12 months for the public display of hate symbols, including Nazi emblems and logos of listed terrorist organisations. So I think at the federal level, it's a 5-year maximum that you can get for including Nazi emblems. At the state level, for public display of the Nazi emblems and the Nazi salute, it's a maximum of 1 year. Jacob Hirschnet was sentenced to prison, but is on bail appeal. And the South Australian law goes even further. It's any Nazi a symbol associated with Nazism or neo-Nazism. So that's why they charged Joel with displaying the symbol of the National Socialist Network, which the federal and state laws are only, it's very specific, only outlaw symbols and gestures associated with the National Socialist German Workers' Party. So 12-month minimum, does that include the Nazi salute? So if you display a swastika or a Nazi salute, raise your arm. I'm not sure, Patterson is not. 12-month minimum. Yet here in Victoria, we just had a pedophile, a teacher, walk free. I'll just go over to this. So we're becoming like the UK. So this convicted a pedophile, former primary school teacher, Nicholas O'Shea, 31, was only issued a 3 months community correction order, $2,000 fine, and a suspended 12-month sentence for his predatory sexual offending against 9 males aged as young as 14. So no jail for him, even though he had 9 eviction and attempted to sodomize 2 two male teenagers when they were asleep. He blamed his repressed homosexuality. So no jail for him, but there's nothing on James Patterson's timeline about a mandatory sentence for being a pedophile teacher. I would hope that he would support mandatory minimum sentences for convicted pedophiles. Number 4, James Patterson established a real anti-Semitism task force instead of the more limited Federal Police Special Operation, which brings in all key Commonwealth and state intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies. Establish an independent inquiry by an eminent national security expert into why the Prime Minister and relevant ministers were not told about the Dural Caravan incident, which could have been the most serious mass casualty event in our history. Yes, last week, the Liberal National Opposition and the pro-Zionist media over at Sky News and Sherry Markson said, why did the Australian Federal Police and the New South Wales Police keep secret for 10 days until it was leaked to the Daily Telegraph? The caravan of power gel explosives found in Dural and Sydney's northwest was found on January 19th. It's actually been parked on the side of the road for over a month. And so power gel explosives are exclusively used in the mining industry for underground tunneling and blasting. They're supposed to be under heavy security. So how did they end up in the hands in a van just parked on the side of the road? Now, they need a detonator to explode them. There was no detonator found. There was enough explosives to have a blast radius of around 40 meters. Now, there was a list of Jewish targets and a note that said, "Fuck the Jews." Now, even Andrew Bolt on Sky News said that this looks sus, like it was planted there. It reminded me of Jesse Smollett's a hate crime hoax. Remember the two white supremacists who attacked him with their MAGA hats and said, "This is MAGA country." It's like if a van was held with a list of Black Lives Matter targets with a MAGA hat in it and a note saying, "This is MAGA country." Now, the New South Wales Police said that the leak to the media compromised their covert investigation, because we heard from the Australian Federal Police earlier this month that they believe that all of these, or most of these, anti-Semitic arson and vandalism attacks are being orchestrated by a foreign actor paying local criminals and organised crime in cryptocurrency or cash. The New South Wales Police said they had arrested 2 suspects on the periphery who were couple Tammy Frugra and Scott Marshall. So this is a photo of them. They look like they're out of central casting from Housos, Shazza and Dazza. Now, they're both in custody. Tammy was charged over anti-Semitic vandalism in Wallara on December the 11th. And she posted on a Facebook group, "Got any jerry cans?" And a third person has been arrested on the periphery, and that is Simon Lance Nichols, age 39, and charged with making kill cars. So they are cars with false number plates. They're called kill cars usually because they're used in drive-bys and kidnappings. Now, New South Wales Police have not identified any specific ideology in Tammy and Scott that would cause them to commit such acts. So that indicates to us that being orchestrated in some manner. They don't look like the sharpest tools in the shed. They have 5 children. sort of like Shazza and Dazza from Houses. Maybe Paulie Finnick can write this into the next season of Housos. Now, when the Australian Federal Police said that they believe that these attacks are being orchestrated by actors from overseas, I remember Jane Patterson saying, we need more information. And what you want, they're basically the police to, as they said that the leak of the information compromised their investigation. You want a running update on an ongoing investigation, which would probably blow the methods. How would that be in the interest of catching who is actually perpetrating or financing this? That makes no sense. Are you accusing the police of being liars or not knowing what they're doing? That's a pretty serious accusation. Now, going back to James Patterson's 8-point plan, launch a new national ad campaign to combat anti-Semitism and extremism and restore social cohesion. The campaign must highlight the determination of the federal government to apprehend perpetrators for these crimes and the serious consequences they will face. Amend the Section 501 of the Character Provisions of the Migration Act to ensure this anti-Semitic conduct is captured by the law and applies retrospectively for all acts of hatred towards the Jewish community since October the 7th. Initiate a judicial inquiry into anti-Semitism on campus with further evidence at Queensland University of Technology in recent weeks, and this remains completely out of control. This is a test of Anthony Albanese's leadership, and he must take strong action to stamp out anti-Semitism. Continued weakness will only embolden extremism, who may escalate their behaviour even further. Or you could just find out the source of the police could just find out the source of the funds and cut off the source of the financing. And Nathan Swindon is underneath. Honestly, it's just satirical at this point how hysterical you guys get over graffiti compared to little how you care when white Australians get terrorized. And so, yeah, Nathan Swindon just posting screenshots if he couldn't find Senator Patterson talking about condemning Australian war memorials or monuments to our founding fathers and pioneers being vandalized. Now, at the federal level, James Patterson is indicating the coalition is in favour of even more hate speech laws, but thankfully there has been a bit of a return to principle in the Victorian Liberal Party room under new leader Brad Batten, because all indications are that they will oppose Labor's expansion of the anti-vilification laws to the attributes I previously mentioned, so sex, sexuality, gender identity, disability. And they said that existing laws should be enforced. Now, both Brad Batten and Jacinta Allen face their first electoral tests on the weekend with the mini super Saturday of by-elections. So there is the Werribee by-election, which is considered a safe Labor seat, vacated by the now ex-treasurer, Tim Pallas, aka Uncle Fester. So the candidates for the major parties, because this will be a Liberal versus Labor contest, the Liberal Party selected Steve Murphy, who's a former policeman and army trooper. He's also a member of the Catholic fraternity Knights of the Southern Cross. Now, I saw an article in The Age lamenting that the Liberals should have selected an Indian candidate because there's a lot of Indians that live in the seat of Werribee. Yeah, selecting an Indian candidate for an area where there's lots of Indians hasn't worked out for the Liberal Party previously. There's Sue Munro from the Victorian Socialists, so she's part of the socialist Antifa mob that protest for Free Palestine every Sunday. She's always at the counter protests for the turf rallies and the nationalist rallies. One of the prominent independent candidates is Aidan McGlinton. He's actually the mayor of Whittlesea, which is out in the northeast. So he ran for Morgan Jonas's Freedom Party at the 2022 state election. So the Labor Party's candidate is John Lister, who is a school teacher. Now, in the Paran by-election, that was triggered by the resignation of the incumbent Greens member, Sam Higgins, held the seat for 10 years after he admitted to a consensual affair with a staffer. The Greens kicked him out of the party room. So Labor's not contesting. It's going to be a two-way contest between Labor and the Greens. So the Liberals have selected Rachel Westaway, who is the president of the Thai Australian Chamber, encouraging a trade and positive relationship between Australia and Thailand. The Greens have selected Angelica Di Camillo, who's an Italian migrant, and then she's one of those STEMinists and works in clean energy. And she lives in with her partner in St Kilda, who's an environmental engineer. Now, one of the prominent independents is, go further down here, is a Buzz Billman, who's a former member of both the Labor and the Greens. Then there is Tony Lupton, who is also a former Labor MP for Paran from 2002 to 2010. For the Libertarian Party is Mark Dissau, who is a Jewish Victorian who says he's deeply concerned about the government's response to growing anti-Semitism, but he does not support anti-free speech laws. I would like to feature him on my Wilms Front program, because we do need members of the Jewish community to stand up for free speech, so that they're not all like, as the NSN banner alleges, freedom haters. So that is it's the first sort of a predecessor to the federal election, and there's still the Western Australian state election to go on Saturday, March the 8th. Now, unlike in Victoria, the Labor Party is doing much better over in the West. It looks like the Labor Premier, Roger Cook, will be re-elected. Though a disastrous result in these by-elections for Jacinta Allen could see Socialist Barbie, could see Ken, her deputy, Ben Carroll, take over the leadership, like in how Ken took over Barbie World in the Barbie movie. Of course, snuck his way into the deputy premiership. The last poll had the coalition 20 points primary ahead of Labor, 42 to 22%, which would be 55 to 45% two-party preferred. So it'd be a Brad slide or Batten slide, whatever you want to call it. Now, Peter Dutton, the federal opposition leader, was in Box Hill for the Lunar New Year. So was the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. So he posed for a photo. Both Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese posed for a photo with the Chinese Communist ambassador to Australia. So he is probably thinking his name is Quang Jan. Ha, what suckers! And because Peter Dutton, he wants to win back the seat of Chisholm, which is just south of Box Hill, which was lost by Gladys Liu at the 2022 federal election. And at that election, they nearly lost the seat of Menzies, which has the most Chinese Australians in it. So Peter Dutton, actually, he raised Albo's pledge of $150,000 in funding for the Lunar New Year Festival in Box Hill. Peter Dutton promised $250,000. Is that will that pass their Doge test? Apparently, if you're doing anything it takes to win back the seat of Chisholm and wanting to hang on to the seat of Menzies, and Keith Wallahan, the Liberal member for Menzies, also announced a new memorial sculpture to Chinese Australian war veterans.
I wasn't born in Australia, but I learnt an important truth early, that service is not defined by ancestry, but it is marked instead by duty, by courage, and by sacrifice. For over a century, Chinese Australians have embodied these values, often serving for a nation that didn't make it easy, yet serve they did. These included Billy Singh in World War I, those who served in World War II, Peter Leifman, who served in Vietnam, and many who serve today in uniform and in recent conflicts, like Grange Chung, who's a candidate. I'm here in Box Hill, which has the largest Chinese diaspora in Australia, and just behind me are people doing Tai Chi in this beautiful gardens. I'm really pleased to hear today that a coalition government will fund a memorial sculpture. It will be placed here in the Box Hill Gardens with the support of the RSL. It will be inspired by other memorials around the country and will seek input from Chinese Australian veterans. Because being Australian isn't about where you came from, it's about living your best life, and it's about what you give back. And Chinese Australians do that in a way that makes me so proud to be their representative here in Menzies.
Authorised by Keith.
So are they Australians or are they Chinese Australians? If they fought for Australia, then they're Australians. And it's not going to be a full memorial. It's going to be a sculpture memorial. But it reminds me of the UK Conservative government funding a war memorial for Muslims who fought for the British Empire. The justification was there's already one for Sikhs. So is Australia going to go down the same path where we're going to have a separate memorial for a different ethnic group in Australia? I thought the promise of the Dutton opposition that we're all Australians under one flag. I don't have veterans all fight for one flag. Now, the Lunar New Year celebrations, they were also on Sunday with the extreme heat, and certainly they weren't cancelled because of the heat. Now, there was one in Chinatown, a Chinese New Year festivities, but there was a separate one for the Vietnamese Victorians in Victoria Street in Richmond. And now they both observe Lunar New Year, but historically and even today, the Chinese and the Vietnamese governments are suspicious of each other. So, but thankfully, there hasn't been a riot in the Melbourne CBD between Chinese and Vietnamese like there was between the Indian Hindus and the Sikhs back in March 2023, beginning of 2023, which is actually, that's resurfaced again on social media. And now the Vietnamese Australians, they are staunchly anti-communist, and their only loyalty is to Australia because the country that they fought for, South Vietnam, no longer exists. But with the Chinese Australians, it's different because the Chinese Communist Party believe that all Han Chinese all over the world, even if they're living in Australia and Australian citizens, are still Chinese and should be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Republic of China. The previous member for Chisholm, Gladys Liu, she claimed ignorance, that she was not aware she was part of all of these United Front community groups. And Peter Dutton, in a bid to win back those Chinese those seats where there's a lot of Chinese Australians, this was reported on 9 News and in the 9 newspapers at a fundraiser in the Sydney seat of Benelog, where there is lots of Chinese Australians and also Korean Australians, which the Liberals lost at the 2022 state election. He was filmed at a fundraiser for the Liberal candidate for the seat. So his name is Scott Young. So he was filmed with a migration agent, Min Lu, whose migration agency specializes in applications for wealthy, you would assume mainly Chinese, with no education or English requirements, told Peter Dutton that investors wanted a clear direction about the significant investor visa. Now, this was also called the golden handshake, where foreigners could simply buy their way into Australia for $5 million. This was scrapped by the Albanese Labor government after it was fears from the intelligence agencies. It brought in spies and criminals into the country. So he told the migration agent that I think we'll bring it back. Whether we do that before the election or look at a different design, we'll have to consider that. Probably the redesign is something we'll do in government. So this was shared to the Chinese social media Red Note. So even though Peter Dutton has postured about a cut to Australia's migration intake, it is basically just for show. So back in December last year, all he said that he would do is have a temporary permanent cut to the permanent migration program, a short-term cut from 185,000 to 140,000. But of course, that doesn't account for all of the net overseas migration that we've got over the past two financial years, over 1 million over the past two financial years, and a lot use temporary migration to get their foot in the door, to get apply for asylum. And there, of course, was the 100-day protest, occupation outside the Home Affairs Office by predominantly those from the subcontinent demanding permanent visas. And they also announced recently is the mechanism for mutual recognition of qualifications between Australia and India, because Peter Dutton is also all in on mass migration from India. So he went on a trip to India at the end of 2023, where he bragged to the Indians how many visas he granted to people from India, and he also to this migration agent also talked up all of the migrants that he let in. So when he was asked about this by a Nine News reporter, he said, "As immigration minister, I brought in a record number of people through different visa programs. We did it in a responsible way. The significant investment visa provides an opportunity for people to invest capital." He said he wanted the visa program to be an investment in jobs and growth, and would announce his policy in due course. So we're basically being taken for a ride by Peter Dutton. He's basically promising all of these migration agents that, look, it's just going to be business as usual under me. You're all still going to be let into Australia. And obviously, and the spin that he's actually spinning that this is a good thing because we're getting all this foreign investment. So yeah, Peter Dutton, and of course he believes that there is no problem with multiculturalism, and well, what is that? He said the same thing as James Patterson. We need to restore social cohesion. Of course, it's an oxymoron. Social cohesion is incompatible with multiculturalism. In fact, breaking tonight, Greg Hunt, remember him, the former federal health minister, has said there should be a national parliamentary apology to Jewish Australians for all of the anti-Semitic attacks, even though I didn't do it. Almost all Australians didn't do it. Anthony Albanese and his government didn't do it. So all of a sudden, the coalition are into symbolic apologies for stuff that the government didn't do. How about Greg Hunt? We get a national apology from you for mandating all of us take part in the COVID vaccine trial. Remember, he said that the vaccine rollout was a trial. And of course, there's been a lot of adverse reactions to the largest clinical trial in Australia's history. And I also should remind our viewers that last year, the coalition scuttled the Albanese government's legislation to introduce caps on student numbers at private colleges and education providers. This was after he dined with migration agents. So again, don't be fooled. Now let's go over to the international news, and of course there have been there's been the horrific twin plane crashes in the United States. So first there was the mid-air mid-air collision over a Potomac River in Washington, D.C. So a American Airlines 534 collided with a Black Hawk helicopter, killing all 64 on board the airplane, including members of the figure skating community. Had been participating in a championship in Wichita, Kansas. So as many as 15 passengers could have been affiliated with it. And just by coincidence, a couple of hours before this plane collision, Tonya Harding announced that she was on X. She had nothing to do with it, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. There's another tragedy in the figure skating community, and she announced that she was on social media right before this tragedy occurred. Now, the Black Hawk had 3 pilots, and now we got the names of the male fatalities, but we didn't get the name of the female who was one of the pilots. So why was that? It was apparently at the request of her family, yet it has now been released. Her social media has been scrubbed. So the first 2 were named immediately. This is the Gateway pundit. So the first were from the Army, Staff Sergeant Ryan Austin O'Hara, 28, and Chief Warrant Officer to Andrew Lloyd Eves. So the third one was 28-year-old Captain Rebecca Loback, who had 450 hours of flying experience, recently served as a military aide in the Biden White House. So why did her family, because by withholding her name, it fueled many people's suspicion that her name was being withheld because it might be revealed she was a DEI hire. Now, obviously, 450 hours of flying experience ain't nothing. But what we do know is that the Federal Aviation Authority, they were into DEI. Now, Trump didn't blame the pilots for saying they were DEI, but said that it should be looked at. And also there was only one air traffic controller because one of them knocked off just before this tragedy occurred. There was also some fake news by the Democrats claiming that Trump's funding freezes caused this accident. And then, of course, there's a lot of terrible tragedies that tend to come in pairs. And so that was on January 29th, which is Wednesday. And then there was the Medivac flight that crashed immediately after taking off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, and crashed into a busy shopping mall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So 6 people, including a young female patient and a mother, who were Mexican nationals, who was getting treatment in the United States. So there have been 7 total, 6 total fatalities. There has been 1 ground fatality and 19 injured. Absolutely horrific. So January, in the United States, remember there was the terrorist attack in New Orleans on New Year's Day. Then there was the Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump hotel in Las Vegas. So there's been it's been, in terms of a needless loss of life in January. It's been terrible for the United States. But now the US media is talking about Trump's trade war. He is now, as I've previously told you all, I am a libertarian. I believe in free trade, and because tariffs are basically import taxes, they don't in lots of the products that we buy from Amazon or online made and shipped from overseas. So Donald Trump putting basically an import tax on the 25% on Canada and Mexico, it's going to cause a lot of economic hurt. A 10% tariff on China, and he's also said that the European Union and the UK is in his firing line for tariffs as well. There was 50 billion wiped off the Australian stock market. Australian dollar fell even further to the US dollar. So it's not good. Now, I don't know what Trump's strategy is. Because previously he's just threatened tariffs as part of his art of the deal, like he did with Colombia. And he's also had success with getting the president of Panama to not sign the Belt and Road deal with China, because the US made the Panama Canal, and the Panama president was just going to give it away to China. It was built by America. It was given away by Jimmy Carter, sort of like how Gough Whitlam decided to unilaterally give away Papua New Guinea, even though they probably would be better still as an Australian territory. So I hope that these tariff trade wars don't last long. Both Justin Trudeau, the outgoing Prime Minister of Canada, responded with his own tariffs on the United States, and the Mexican President, Claudia Sheinbaum, also decided to slap tariffs off the United States as well. And the US anthem was booed at, I think it was ice hockey in Canada. So this could actually backfire or lead to a surge in liberal, because the Liberal Justin Trudeau's party is the Liberal Party, could lead to a surge in support and could jeopardize Pierre Poilievre's it looks like a cakewalking into the prime ministership at the Canadian general election. Also, Trump is being blamed for inflation not coming down immediately, including egg prices, even though lots of the US Democrat states have ordered the mass killing of chickens because of bird flu outbreaks. In particular, Gavin Newsom in California, who declared a state of emergency over bird flu in chickens. So if they can't get their pandemic, then they will cripple the food supply. And of course, there was a lot of the you would call them the pandemic fear pushers, saying that the messing with the CDC website on Friday was terrible, and even ordering the takedown of pronouns from emails. Now, apparently, it's not an order to individuals, but to get rid of the email messaging system, which automatically lists the pronouns. So Trump previously mentioned has cut the LGB off the TQI. At the Grammys today, there was not just Ye's wife having a see-through clear dress. So is Ye apparently Kanye? Is he back to being Kanye West? He's apparently better now because he apologized for his anti-Semitic remarks. So is that progress that he's parades a basically naked wife at the Grammys? That's a good thing. And then there of course, Will Smith's son, Jaden Smith, was wearing like a building on his head. Suddenly, Jaden Smith's dresses and skirts don't seem such a ridiculous fashion statement. He looked more sensible in those than with something on his head. The Smith Pinkett family, they're obviously messed up. But Lady Gaga decided to use her acceptance speech to rally, stand with the trans community, because they say they're being erased because the State Department changed its travel advisory. Well, you still exist. You haven't disappeared. So if you're posting on X and Blue Sky and other social media, you clearly exist. It's like when they claim that Michael Knowles wanted to genocide transgender people because he said transgenderism, he mean the ideology should be eradicated. Now, going over to the UK, where Reform is surging in the polls. They are now first ahead of the Starmer Labor government and the Kemi Badenoch-led Conservative opposition. Now, there is local government elections due in May. Not all the councils go to election at the same time, but they sort of have a rotating rotating councils. Certain councils are up for election 4-year terms. The Uniparty, they're considering cancelling the elections under the guise of reforming the structure of council councils in England, because they're scared that Reform will win big. Now, there was another Reform conference, and Rupert Lowe, who Elon Musk reckons should be the leader of Reform UK, came out in support of mass deportations, which Nigel Farage is not in favour of. He is absolutely the best based Reform MP, and he is doing his job as an MP for nothing. He's donating his salary to charity like Donald Trump does. He's doing the presidency for free. Even he's lost money, Donald Trump. And just going back to the Trump administration's giant strides. So the illegals who don't want to be deported, they think that they're going to get sympathy from the US public. They may get it from the US mainstream media by burning American flags and waving Mexican flags. So that's apparently going to want the US public to want you to stay. And then, of course, there was J.D. Vance saying, I don't give a damn, Margaret, who was trying to split hairs. Oh, was this Muslim immigrant, was he radicalized before he got here or when he was here? And J.D. Vance said, I don't give a damn. I don't want him in my country. Like, what difference does it make? Like, if you can get somebody out of your country who is a threat, then you should do it. And did anyone see the DNC chair and vice chair election pictures there? They haven't learned anything, and they elected 24-year-old David Hogg. Remember him? He was one of the survivors from that. Can't remember the name of the school shooting. Some people allege that he was a crisis actor and then became an anti-gun activist, the March for Our Lives. So, yeah, 24. He's one of the vice chairs of the DNC. He's rising up faster through the ranks than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. All right, everybody, that's the end of Tim's News Explosion for another week. Thank you so much for joining me. So once you've finished watching Tim's News Explosion, and once I'm off air, make sure that you watch a Thomas Sewell and Blair Cottrell on Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious podcast. I'll put the link into the live chat again. And I will be back on air tomorrow on Reality Check Radio's breakfast program with Paul Brennan. They've just had an RCR 2.0 launch. They're going to be doing more short form content, which I will share on my own social media. Now, I'll be on every fortnight this year because they're wanting to do more, produce more video social content with less. But Dewey DeBoer, he has showed the dialogue. I hope you enjoyed the Trad Tasman Talk special that myself and Dewey put to air last Friday night. You can view it on the Unshackled's YouTube channel. And I will be back with another Wilms report. Wilms Front episode, I should say, this Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Melbourne time, on the Wilms Front channels. So my guest will be Dr. William Bay, who was wrongfully suspended by the health regulatory body for 2 years for publicly confronting the Chief Medical Officer of Australia, Paul Kelly, over the COVID vaccines at I think it was the Australian Medical Association conference. And the Queensland Supreme Court said that it was not lawful what APRA did. Now, that will be on the Wilms Front channel, so same ones as Tim's News Explosion airs on. So YouTube, Rumble, and X. So make sure that if you haven't subscribed already, click the bell to allow notifications, give a thumbs up, like, comment below, and share, of course, to get the word out. And of course, I email all of my alerts for upcoming Unshackled Productions, live Unshackled Productions on the Unshackled Substack. You can also support us on Substack. That's where our Unshackled Archive is now. So monthly $5 per month, annual $50 per year, founding member $500 per year. And then you can also support us over at the Unshackled.net. That's where our Unshackler awards and our articles are. So you can support us bronze $5 per month, $50 per year, silver $10 per month, $100 per year, gold $25 a month, $250 per year, or platinum $50 per month, $500 per year. I cannot do this show without all of your support. And there, of course, will be another fresh report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft this week. I also hope that he'll be on Sam Newman's podcast as well. So you can also view listen to both Tom and Blair and also Richard on your podcasting platform as well. You'll listen to Unshackled Productions on your podcasting platforms as well. So I'll see you all on Thursday. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, stay cool, and stay optimistic as well, because 2025, it's got off to a great start, and I'm pretty sure that will continue despite of the lack of choice that we're going to be seemingly offered at this federal election. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.